Right now I am actually wearing your Montreal Expo jersey, which is autographed. I have
Wait, there's a lot more. There's a lot more.
Still
You're
more,
not gonna
Gary.
believe this.
All right, there's the 1984 glass, the Gary Carter glass. Okay. I have my autographed New York Met hand-painted Gary Carter baseball. Other things which I haven't taken down: a Gary Carter autographed bat and an All-Star from the Chicago autograph. No, from the bag, the All-Star bag.
Right.
So to say I am
there's the picture,
and there's a picture of you and Pete Rose. To say I'm a Gary Carter fan would be a tremendous understatement. So it's an absolute pleasure to have the kid on the show with us tonight. So Mark, myself, and AJ, welcome you to the show.
Well, Mark and AJ, I'm flattered, I'm honored, and I must say I appreciate that. All the years that I was fortunate enough to play the great game of baseball for 18 years at the major league level, 20 and a half years total in professional ball. All I wanted to try to do was play the game the way it was supposed to be played, have respect for the game. I followed, I patterned myself kind of after Pete Rose and Johnny Bench, and for me to hear that, makes me feel really good. So I thank you. I thank you for being a fan. I thank you for supporting me through all those years and everything. But you know what? It's just great to be able to be on air with you guys and talk some baseball.
Now, to start off the interview, people might not even know this about you, but you were a very good football player in your early days. In fact, you were the first national winner in the 7-year-old punt, pass, and kick contest. Do you remember much about that event?
Yeah, I do. I mean, obviously, I was very fortunate as a 7-year-old when, the Ford punt, pass, and kick contest kind of got started. And, a lot of people probably didn't know that much about the contest or whatever. And I remember my mom saying, we never win anything. And I said, Mom, but this is a skills competition. And I said, let me just give it a shot. And, one thing led to another. And back then in 1961, there wasn't a lot of steps that you had to go through to be able to get to the national title. And, I remember winning locally, and then I went district, I think, and then I competed at the Coliseum. And then the next thing I know, because of, the short amount of skills contests that you had to go through, here I was the national champion. Now, fortunately, I was able to go back again as a 9-year-old, and then there was more steps that you had to go through. You had to go locally, districtly, area, then, to the Coliseum, and then nationally. And then I went back to Chicago and competed once again as a 9-year-old. And, I was very fortunate and lucky because I had the chance to do a commercial for Ford Motor Company, and did it along with Chris Schenkel, the longtime announcer. And, I was able to promote punt, pass, and kick because I was the first player or participant to go back a second time as a champion. And, even though I lost my second time and was runner-up in 1963, it was just a great pleasure. Now, I never, had the opportunity of playing Pop Warner, and so I never did play any contact football until I got to high school. And you're right, football became my main sport. That was my ticket to college. And believe it or not, UCLA, who I ended up signing a Pac-8 letter of intent to, was the only college out of all the scholarship offers that I was being offered that was going to allow me to play both sports. So I ended up signing that Pac-8 letter of intent. I was going to go run the wishbone for Pepper Rogers and also be able to play baseball for Coach Reichler. And then 5 days later, I was drafted by the Montreal Expos, and because of a knee injury, I decided to go ahead and sign professionally, and that's where my career started in 1972.
So we fast forward now to September 16th, 1974, to Parc Jarry, in the second game of a doubleheader in front of 9,000 fans, and you step to the plate against the New York Mets in your first Major League at-bat versus Randy Sterling. Do you recall your first Major League at-bat?
Vaguely. You're bringing a lot of things back from the past. I just know that in my first game I went 0 for 4, but then my first major league hit was off of John Matlack, and my second major league hit was off of Tom Seaver. And in that September run, I had the pleasure of playing in a few games, and I ended up hitting 407. My first major league home run was off of Steve Carlton, and I ended up hitting 407. I think 11 hits in 27 at bats, and I think that's what gave me the opportunity to win a job my rookie year in 1975.
So, you played with the Expos for a couple of years, and those first 5 years, the Expos were like a lower division team. Dick Williams comes in and kind of starts a turnaround in the franchise. What was it like to be there for those lean years, and then be there during the turnaround when such players like Tim Raines, Andre Dawson, and Warren Cromartie, and Tim Wallach joined the team?
Well, I'll tell you what, AJ and Mark, the thing that was great about the Expos organization, they were very well known for developing talent through the minor leagues. And, I was maybe one of the start of the players, Ellis Valentine, in the same, year that I was drafted, 1972. Dennis Blair was another one that came up to the big leagues a little bit later. But the Expos were always known for developing young talent. Tim Raines, Tim Wallach, Andre Dawson. My gosh, there was a slew of great players that came through the Expos organization. And, when you say the lean years, 1975, my rookie year, you're right, we had a losing record under Gene Mock. Then he was fired. Carl Keel took over, and I played for Carl in the minor leagues for 2 years, and then, had the pleasure of playing under him until September when he was fired, and then Charlie Fox took over. But then in 1977, Dick Williams took over as the manager, and we had a couple of lean years at our first couple of years in Olympic Stadium. But then in 1979, we finally came into our own. So my fifth year in the big leagues, we had an opportunity of being in a pennant race against the We Are Family, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and ended up just a couple of games behind in 79. And then 1980, we lost out to the Phillies by 1 game. And then finally in 1981, we won because of the strike-shortened season. We ended up winning the second half of the season, and then played the Dodgers in the league championship series. But that would be about the only feather in the hat for the Expos during their 36 years of existence. And, it saddens me to think for all those years the Expos were around that we never won a pennant, because we had the nucleus, we had the talent, we had the players to win, but we just didn't end up winning. And, that's the only drawback, I think, in all the years that I played for the Expos. My first 10 years of my career were with the Expos, and I finished off my career in 1992 back with the Expos again. But I was able to enjoy at least the 5 years I was with the New York Mets, and we did win a World Championship in 1986.
Yes, we remember that.
Now, interestingly enough, your time with the Expos, and this is kind of a multi-layered question. So first I'm going to read an excerpt from Bill Lee, the Spaceman's book, which is something that's always stuck with me because, like I said, Gary Carter was one of my favorite players, and Pete Rose was one of my other favorite players. So this is Bill Lee, when he was with the Expos, describing Gary Carter. Gary Carter is a typical National Leaguer. The first time I saw him was in an exhibition game against the Red Sox in 1976. He wasn't catching that day, he was playing left field. Watching him, I was reminded of a giant Pete Rose. Carter was like a greenie master, naturally wired without the use of amphetamines. It was as though he drank 3 cups of coffee before each pitch. He kept running into things that day and finally got knocked unconscious trying to break through a stone wall while chasing a fly ball. Alright, so now you fast forward to your final year with the Expos, and you get to play with Pete Rose. And when you both were on the same team, I actually made a trip up to Montreal to watch you guys. But what was Pete Rose like as a teammate?
Well, I admired and respected Pete so much. And, when he came to the Expos in 1984, Obviously I tried to emulate Pete Rose, not only as a player, but just the fact that he had such great success on the field, and I really tried in every which way to play that style of baseball. I know how much he respected the game. I know how much he loved the game, and Pete Rose was trying to, obviously at that time, go after Ty Cobb's record of 4,191 hits. And that year in 1984, before he left and went to the Reds as a player manager, he achieved his 4,000th hit. Now, I was in the dugout, and I remember it was a double that he hit down the right field line, and I wanted in every which way to run out to second base to congratulate him. And yet I was apprehensive because I didn't know how the other players would react and everything. So it didn't happen until he came back to the dugout. But Pete was a great player, and Pete, when he started out with the Expos in spring training, he was our starting left fielder. Well, he hurt his arm, and then he had a bruised heel, and the only position that he could play was first base. Well, that year was with Bill Verdon, and Bill Verdon would play me at first base day games after night games. And that didn't set in very well with Pete because obviously, that was the only position that he could play. And then by the early part of August, when the Reds offered him to, be able to go and be the player manager, he accepted it. And I think that was the best thing that could have happened for Pete because then, he had his own destiny in front of him where, he could play himself when he wanted to and not play himself when he didn't feel up snuff. But, again, when you think about what he accomplished, 4,256 hits in his career, there's no, greater hitter in the history of the game. It's unfortunate that he's not in the Hall of Fame, and he probably will never get to the Hall of Fame because of what transpired off the field. But nevertheless, he will always be respected and admired. To think that he had, over 20 years. Okay, now when you put that into perspective, 200 hits for 20 years is only still 4,000 hits, but he had 4,256 hits in his career, and that's something that I don't think in modern day there's going to be anybody that's going to be able to break that record.
Well, interestingly enough, there's a good shot that you're going to be managing his son. So you would have played with his father when his father was 43, and now manage his son at 39. How does that hit you?
Well, I'm excited about the opportunity that may exist with that, but I've also heard and understood that, Junior has decided that, this last year in 2008 might have been his last. I mean, and like you say, at 39 years old, I talked to the owner, Frank Bolton, when, I agreed to terms and became the manager of the Ducks, that he said that, and I asked him, I said about Pete Rose Jr., and he said, there's probably a good chance that 2008 might have been his last year. And, I would have loved to have had the challenge and the opportunity to have managed him. I've known Junior through the years, and I think it would have been a great opportunity. But and I would imagine that his father would have come to a few games. But I just don't know what's going to transpire. I heard that, he has maybe decided to move on in his life. But another player that was with the Ducks last year, Carl Everett, another great hitter, had another great year, has probably decided to not play any further than 2008. So, I've got to look at what the possibilities are for the future for the organization, and I have the luxury of working with great coaches like Bud Harrelson and Dave LaPointe and Kevin Baez, and we're going to try to put the best roster together and hopefully be able to produce a winner for the Long Island Ducks because they've got a great fan appeal there. They've got they draw over 6,000 fans a game, and I'm just looking forward to the opportunity, and I'm not thinking anything beyond that. All I want to do is try to help the Ducks win a championship.
What drew you to the Ducks from the Golden Baseball League out on the left coast?
Well, actually, it was Frank Bolton, the owner of the Ducks. I had the opportunity of managing the Orange County Flyers, and we won a championship out there in 2008. And the reason that I was led out there, first of all, I give credit to Jack Brenner, who was my equipment manager and clubhouse guy in Port St. Lucie. Well, his brother-in-law is Bob Young, Robert Young, one of the owners of the Orange County Flyers. And being that my hometown is in Fullerton, I grew up there. I went to school all through the system there, Pacific Drive and Nicholas Junior High and Sunny Hills High School and all. And all of our home games were at Cal State Fullerton. I thought, what a great opportunity to go back to my hometown, spend some quality time with my one and only brother, Gordon, 4 years older than me. My son is out there going to school at Loyola Marymount and wanting to be, become an actor someday. I mean, he's trying to get his master's degree in fine arts. And plus my in-laws, and I knew my wife was going to be coming out there on a pretty regular basis, so it was kind of like a no-brainer. I thought, what a great opportunity for me to get back into the game, get back in uniform, and have the opportunity of going out there and hopefully leading a team to a championship, which fortunately we were able to do. Then Frank Bolton, like I said, the owner of the Ducks, called me after the season ended and offered me the position and opportunity to manage the Ducks. And I prayed about it, talked to my wife about it, and we thought, hey, what a great opportunity to be back, on the East Coast, because my home is in Palm Beach Gardens in Florida, and I thought, hey, what a great chance to manage a team that is very well respected, is very well known, because obviously they draw well with their fan base and everything, and it's probably the best organization in all of the independent leagues. And I thought, hey, I can't think of a better opportunity than coming to the East Coast and managing in the Atlantic League.
Now, if you believe some of the things that have been written over the past few years, I'm not using an if, your real goal is to be manager of the New York Mets. Do you feel this will help bring you any closer to realizing that goal?
Well, before you answer that, Gary, and AJ and I had a little bit of an argument, and it's one of the questions further on in the interview, which I kind of posed this to him, and so it's a two-edged question, and I'm going to let him answer that.
Go.
But also, people here in New York, if they remember when Gary Carter came here, the initial thing was all the writers called him Camera Carter.
Right.
There wasn't a camera that Gary Carter didn't like, and will he take and the bottom line was, when the New York press got to see Gary Carter play, they realized that he wasn't phony, that he had a natural enthusiasm for the game, and that's the way he played the game, and it wasn't phony. He wasn't looking to play for the camera. He was just always happy to play the game. The same thing is said now, where he's openly campaigning for Willie Randolph's job. Now, I don't think that
and
was...
Art House before that is what it was written also.
But I don't believe that was the case. I believe the questions were posed to him, and he said if he was offered the job. I don't think he was actively campaigning. So you can address both those questions, Gary.
Well, I'll be more than happy to, because obviously I think everything was kind of misconstrued, because I was asked a simple question, would I be interested in the job if it was offered? And I simply made the comment, yes, I would be interested. And I said I have, a provision in my contract that I would be able to leave at any time if I was offered a job at the major league level, whether it was be as a coach or as a manager. Now, when Willie Randolph's name was being thrown around as a possibility of being fired, obviously the timing was probably the wrong time of that opportunity, only because when this radio station, Sirius Radio, had called me, and I had done many of interviews with them before, when one of the guys was on Sporting News Radio, and the question was asked. I mean, Willie Randolph, his name has come up as a possibility of being fired. Would you be interested in the job if it was offered? And I said, well, yeah, I would be interested. I mean, I'm out here in California managing the Orange County Flyers in the Independent League, and I have a provision that I could leave at any time. Well, it was totally blown out of proportion, and there was no way that I was trying to undermine Willie. I saw him at the All-Star game and offered an apology, and he said, no, it's not absolutely necessary whatsoever. I know where your heart is, and I know where your feelings are. And you know, I think that it was totally blown out of proportion, and I think it was a way for the media to throw me under the bus and say that I was trying to undermine Willie to take the pressure off of the Mets at that time when obviously the Mets were struggling and Willie was being talked of possibly being fired. So, you know, I have said all along that all I wanted to do is manage the Flyers and not be even concerned whatsoever of thinking about a job at the major league level. And as it turned out, you know, everything was, you know, kind of thrown out the window. And as it turned out, I stayed with the Flyers and we ended up winning a championship. And that's where it led to, you know, the opportunity with Frank Bolton and coming to me and offering me that same, you know, opportunity with the Ducks. You know what? I would love to have a chance to, and I'm saying this, guys, as a chance, an opportunity to manage at the major league level. But you know what? I'm not going to campaign for that anymore. I'm not even going to think about that anymore. All I want to do is manage the Ducks and try and lead them to a championship in 2009. Whatever happens thereafter, we'll you know, look at it you know, after the season. But I'm not even going to be thinking at the major league level either as a coach or manager. All I want to do is do my job as a manager for the Ducks. I'm not going to think about anything else except to try to help them win a championship. And that's it.
Do you think, though, that the controversy, fair, unfair, whatever, raised in the media, do you think that's hurt your chances of getting a major league job?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, you know, because it was so blown out of proportion, and we know that New York is the media capital of the world, and you know they can you know turn things around and you know misconstrue something as much as they want to, and that's okay. And you know, I've come to the realization there's a lot of other guys that would love to have the opportunity of managing at the major league level. Mike Schmidt, who's a good friend of mine, you know, feels the same way. He'd love to have the opportunity of managing a major league team. And, you know, his allegiance obviously is more towards the Philadelphia Phillies. But, you know, Charlie Manuel won a championship for him this year. And you know, that chance is probably not going to happen for him. There's Paul Molitor, there's Robin Yount, there's Eddie Murray, there's so many others that would love to have that chance and opportunity to also manage at the major league level. But you know what? It may not happen. And, you know, we know as players during our era that the game has changed. It's changed immensely, you know, financially. You know, payrolls have changed through the years, and the game as a whole, it's become a game of specialists. You know, there's starting pitchers that may go 6 innings, maybe 7. Very seldom do you see, you know, pitchers going the distance anymore and having complete games. You know, Doc Holliday is about the only one that I know of that had more complete games than anybody in the major leagues this last year. Brandon Webb of the Arizona Diamondbacks, he has a number of complete games. You know, Jake Peavy of San Diego, there's a few that, you know, have had the opportunity of completing games, but for the most part, it's become a game of specialists where a starting pitcher will go maybe 6 innings, then you got a middle relief guy that'll go, you know, maybe an inning or maybe 2 innings, and then you got the closer. It's the way the game has changed. And, you know, you've got premier pinch hitters that can come off the bench, guys like Matt Stairs that can come up and hit a pinch hit home run and win a ball game. You've got, you know, starting players that, you know, have been very successful and are being paid a lot of money. and therefore, there's a lot of other extra players that are being rewarded for being just average players, but that's because the game has changed.
Now, let's rewind 24 years ago, last Wednesday, actually. You were traded to the New York Mets for you. It's unbelievable. It was 24 years ago, just last week. All right, traded from the Expos to the Mets for Hubie Brooks, Mike Fitzgerald, Herm Winningham, and Floyd Yeomans. Do you remember your initial reaction to being traded to the Mets?
A little bit of sadness, because obviously I thought I was going to be one of those organizational players that was going to play for one team for my whole career. And I had kind of devoted myself to that in the organization and made Montreal my home and played for them my first 10 years of my career. And then, the ownership, Charles Bronfman at that winter decided that he wanted to make some changes and decided that he wanted to trade me. And so I kind of talked with and negotiated with John McHale, and he told me that yes, indeed, the ownership wanted to trade me. So I said, well, I don't want to just be traded to anybody, and so they negotiated with several teams. One of the other teams were the Dodgers, and at that time they weren't interested. There was almost a deal done with the Atlanta Braves, and then that fell through, and then the New York Mets. And I never thought that they were going to trade me to a team in the same division. But once the deal was consummated and it needed my agreement on it, I said, well, absolutely, heck yes, because not only did they have an up-and-coming great pitching staff and a great nucleus of a team, I thought, what a great opportunity to maybe one day win a World Series championship. And so when I was traded, I thought, what a great chance for that to happen. And it didn't happen in '85, but it certainly happened definitely in '86.
Now, speaking of '85 and '86, which is you can almost make a comparison. '85, you guys, with all the talent that the Mets had acquired, the acquisition of you, the young Gooden, Strawberry, Hernandez, everyone had to figure the Mets were odds-on favorites to win. You fall short. The Cardinals win the division. What was the feeling amongst the core in the locker room at the end of '85, similar to what's going in the Mets locker room now? And what was different about the '86 season that led you on to what was one of the most memorable years for any Met fan?
Well, I would say more than anything, there was total disappointment because we were expected to win. We should have won. We ended up losing out to the Cardinals. They obviously had a great ball club as well. And when the season ended, as it did in the final series against St. Louis, we were just overwhelmed with disappointment, and we thought, oh my gosh, we can't let this happen again. We've just got way too much talent. And when we came back to spring training in 1986 in St. Petersburg, we had just had that feeling from day one, that we were the team of destiny, that we were going to win. And I'll never forget in early April when Davey Johnson told us, he said, you know what, you go into St. Louis, and we had a big 4-game series against them. He said, if you show them and prove to them that you can beat them and say win at least 3 of the 4 games, they'll curl up and die. Well, we went in and swept the series. We won 4 straight, and that's exactly what happened. We ended up winning the division by 21.5 games, and I mean, we were a powerhouse the whole season. And like you said, it was totally a dream season, and we were a team of destiny. I mean, I just remember the league championship series against the Houston Astros and how difficult it was to get through that series. And I think it was one of the greatest league championship series ever played. And then, of course, we play in the World Series, and then everybody remembers Game 6 and the ball that went through Bill Buckner's legs, and how we dramatically came back after a 2-run deficit with 2 outs in the bottom of the 10th inning. And obviously, like I said earlier, we were a team of destiny.
Well, speaking of that memorable inning, I guess it's fitting to close on that, since you were the guy that got that inning started. every Met fan has heard the stories about how Keith went into the clubhouse and Kevin Mitchell was somewhere off making plane reservations. What was your recollection of that last inning?
Well, obviously there was a lot of disappointment after the first two outs were made when Wally Backman made the first out and Keith Hernandez made the second out. And I think there was like a total silence throughout Shea Stadium where it had been rocking and rolling all year long. Everybody thought that maybe this series was going to end and the curse of the Bambino was going to end. And all I can say is that when I strode up to the plate, all I could think about was keeping, the game alive. And in my mind, all I wanted to do was just come through in whichever way, either draw a walk, get hit by a pitch, or get on base somehow or another by a base hit or whatever. And fortunately, I was able to, get the hit to left field. And then Kevin Mitchell, who was definitely in the clubhouse making a plane reservation, was called and came out into the dugout and was trying to right himself. Then he got a hit. And then Ray Knight, he battled Calvin Schiraldi, broke his bat, hit a flare over Marty Bear's head that scored me and sent Kevin Mitchell to third base. And then John McNamara made the change and brought in Bob Stanley and took out Calvin Schiraldi. But what he had always done all year long is he usually always brought in a defensive replacement for Bill Buckner and always would bring in Dave Stapleton. But he didn't do it this time because he felt like the Red Sox were going to win and he wanted Bill Buckner to be on the field when they clinched it. Well, turned out that a few pitches later, Bob Stanley throws this wild pitch. Kevin Mitchell scores. Now we're tied. And then a few pitches later, Mookie hits this dribbler down the first baseline, gets through Buckner's legs. Ray Knight scores from third base. And we knew at that point in time the momentum had swung back towards us, and we had tied the series up at 3 games apiece. It didn't matter how far down we were going to be in Game 7. We were going to end up winning that series. And as it turned out, we were down 3-0 after 5 innings, and we ended up winning that game 8-5. And to me, it was the greatest memory in my career.
It's very interesting because the video that goes out and the audio that goes out is also accompanied by a chat room. And Bob Merck in Pennsylvania just wrote, no matter how many times someone retells that inning, the story never gets old, and it's absolutely true. Before we go, we'd like you, if you can, tell us a little bit about the Gary Carter Foundation and what it does and how people can help.
Well, I tell you guys, I appreciate the opportunity of sharing that. I mean, I started the foundation, funded it back in the year 2000. It's been going on, for a number of years now where I've been able to help out the underprivileged schools down here in South Florida. Right now, I presently help out 8 different schools. I've raised over $8 million for leukemia. We have an annual golf event that is my biggest fundraiser, and we allocate enough money to help these underprivileged schools in a reading counts program. And it's all about trying to better the education for the schools down in this area. And both of my girls were school teachers at one time. My eldest daughter is now a full-time mom, and I have 2 grandsons. And my other daughter is now a full-time coach at Palm Beach Atlantic University, and she's the head softball coach there. But I've taken on that responsibility of wanting to continue to help educate the kids in this area. And then also we help out juvenile diabetes. And so I'm very proud of the association I've had with leukemia for all the years. And, of course, that's what I lost my mother to. And now to be able to help out juvenile diabetes and the kids in the school system down in this area is something I'm very, very proud of. And I've, given away probably over $250,000 in that regard. And in the Reading Counts program, if they accumulate enough points, we reward them with bikes or iPods or cassette players or, T-shirts, hats, whatever it is, and it's all to help out and get them excited about wanting to improve their education. So that's what the foundation's all about. And I think, my financial advisors, Tom Nolan and Jeff Snyder, for helping me out and keeping the foundation alive. And I'd love to reach out and go across the country, but as it stands right now, we're only helping out the schools down in the South Florida area, but maybe one day we'll be able to, go across the nation.
All right, Gary, we're looking forward to seeing you here on Long Island. When you're ready to come here, AJ and I can show you around, because we're about 15 minutes from is it still Citi Field?
It is, well, until the bankruptcy goes over, until the federal bailout.
We're about 15, 20 minutes from Citi Field. Yeah, it was the EAB Park a while.
Park.
So we're really looking forward to seeing you on Long Island. Continued good luck with the foundation, and good luck this year with the Ducks, and we'll be seeing you at the ballpark.
Hey, I look forward to it, guys, and we'll do some more interviews during the season, okay?
We'll look forward to it, Gary. Have a great night.
All right, guys, and thanks again for your support.
Our pleasure, Gary. Have a good one.
All right. Hey, Merry Christmas to you guys, too.
You too. Have a happy holiday.
Bye-bye. All right, thanks. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Hall of Famer Gary Carter.